a Malfoy's guide to wizarding bloodlines. Pay attention. Most wizards treat the concept of family like a sentimental greeting card or some dusty historical footnote. They prattle on about love and loyalty, concepts utterly useless when weighed against a proper legacy. True heritage, the kind worth possessing, is about maintaining, building, and occasionally, yes, purifying the line. Today, we shall examine true aristocracy, focusing on power structures, poor decision-making, and the exquisite consequences of having absolutely atrocious relatives. This is not potions, so I expect proper standards of learning, even from the Muggle board. The Peverell Family, we begin with the theoretical foundation of power, a family so ancient they barely qualify as history. The Peverells. Their primary contribution is less a political dynasty and more a rather fanciful collection of relics. The three brothers Antioch, Cadmus, and Ignotus allegedly tricked death, thus obtaining the Hallows, the Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, and the Invisibility Cloak. The irony, of course, is that objects meant to make one the master of death usually cause chaos for anyone who touches them. The Peverell name itself has been extinct in the male line for centuries, and their only lasting importance is the unpleasant fact that their blood trickled down to far less refined lineages, namely the Gaunts, and even more regrettably, the Potters. An ancient myth whose most powerful creation, the Elder Wand, was wasted while its legacy lives on in a tattered old cloak, proving that the height of Potter's power is simply knowing when to disappear. The Gaunt Slytherin family. Next, we move to a family whose sheer arrogance was arguably warranted. Initially, the Gaunts, direct descendants of Salazar Slytherin, they upheld the purity ideal with such a fanatical obsession that they developed a delightful tendency toward instability and outright squalor, thanks to their insistence on marrying cousins. They inherited the ability to speak Parseltongue and cherished the belief that magical education should be reserved for pure-blood families. They were enormously proud of possessing two objects, the ring, featuring the Peverell coat of arms, and Slytherin's locket. And what good did this pedigree achieve? The last generation, Marvolo, Morfin, and Merope, lived in poverty, their grandeur reduced to a filthy shack. Their ambition, everything they stood for, was undone by Merope, who betrayed her blood for a muggle. This failure produced the worst insult imaginable, a half-blood heir who destroyed them all. A brilliant ideology ruined by weakness, proving that the most noble lineage can be undone by the pathetic sentiment of a single witch. The Malfoy Family. Now, we turn to the gold standard of surviving aristocracy. My own family, the Malfoys. We are proof that true pure blood status is not merely about avoiding muggle-borns. It is about maintaining power. We understood, unlike the sentimental Gaunts, that influence is paramount. For centuries, we have ensured our presence near the centers of power, whether through financing the right causes or exercising control over the ministry itself. My father, Lucius, instilled in me the inherent superiority that comes with our lineage. We never fell into the vulgar trap of poverty. We used our wealth to secure advantage, such as supplying the entire Slytherin Quidditch team with Nimbus 2001s. And yes, even when faced with setbacks, such as my father's temporary absence, we adapted. Our survival, unlike that of foolishly loyal families, has always hinged on recognizing the shifting tide and knowing that loyalty to any cause must never outweigh loyalty to one's own house. It is the definitive example of aristocracy, wealthy, influential, and always cunning enough to prioritize self-preservation over suicidal devotion. If you appreciate that Malfoy cunning trumps Weasley poverty, click like immediately. The Lestrange Family. We observed the Lestrange Family, a house whose ambition was wholly wrapped up in the dark art. This lineage includes my Aunt Bellatrix, born a Black, who married Rodolphus Lestrange. She is a critical example of devotion, a witch whose magical prowess and affinity for cruelty, notably the Cruciatus Curse, made her indispensable to the Dark Lord. Her loyalty was absolute, a stark contrast to my own mother's priorities. The Lestranges demonstrate that fanatical belief yields terrifying results. They were responsible for torturing the Longbottoms into insanity, thereby neutralizing two respected auras. They pursued power with a reckless abandon that often overshadowed common sense, leading to predictable failures, such as Bellatrix's performance at the ministry. Theirs is a pure distilled loyalty refined into pure distilled madness. Impressive, I suppose, if you value noise over results and possess no instinct for survival. The Black Family, the noble and most ancient house of Black. Naturally, they warrant respect. They are one of the oldest pure-blood families, holding the motto, Tujas per. This family understood that true status meant rejecting anyone who muddied the bloodline, as evidenced by the burn marks on their family tapestry. For members like my Aunt Andromeda, it is through this family that my mother, Narcissa, secured her lineage and connected our houses. They produced Bellatrix Lestrange, a loyalist whose devotion was absolute. They also produced Regulus Black, who, though one of the Dark Lord's followers, eventually lost his nerve, an embarrassing lack of stamina. Most infamously, they produced Sirius Black, a blood traitor who ran away and broke his mother's heart with his lawless ways. They are proof that even the most meticulous planning cannot eliminate the occasional embarrassing stain, and that a pure name must be constantly guarded from the weak. Comment below on which family stain is worse, the disgraced name of the Blacks or the sheer, undeserved fame of Pottah. The Pottah family. The Potters. One cannot discuss modern notoriety without addressing this anomaly. Harry Potter is the centerpiece of the entire war, not due to any great breeding or magical achievement, but because he managed to survive the killing curse at the age of 1. His fame stems entirely from a scar. His father, James Potter, was pure blood, but ruined the lineage by marrying Lily Evans, a Muggle-born witch, whom he met at school. Potter's existence is built upon sacrificial protection, an ancient magic lily placed on him by dying for him, a protection rooted in love, a concept entirely worthless in any serious political endeavor. His wealth, thankfully, came from profitable potion royalties, Sleekazy's hair potion, apparently not his actual family's political clout. He was raised by Muggles who abused him, yet somehow became Dumbledore's golden boy. He is the living, sneering embodiment of misplaced attention, a boy who is praised for luck and a mother's devotion rather than any inherent superiority, a lineage defined by accidental survival and Muggle association, demonstrating perfectly how misplaced fame can elevate the utterly ordinary. The Weasley Family. The Weasleys, one of the so-called sacred 28 pure blood families, yet they insist on behaving like common riffraff. They are the definitive example of blood traitors, marrying Muggles and actively embracing tolerance, thereby disgracing their pure ancestry. They possess an enormous number of children, a fact only matched by their spectacular lack of wealth. The head of the family, Arthur Weasley, occupies himself with ridiculous Muggle protection acts, while his sons busy themselves with joke shops. Even their most ambitious brother, Percy, only managed a brief display of self-serving pragmatism at the ministry before inevitably crawling back, revealing a profound lack of true cunning. Their sole merit to history is providing a loyal, if clumsy, sidekick to Potter and supplying enough red hair to clog the Floo network. A painful illustration that pure blood, if combined with willful poverty and a love of Muggles, is less valuable than a pocketful of sickles. To ensure your pedigree never sinks like the Weasleys' reputation, subscribe and maintain your connection to true Malfoy aristocracy. The Longbottom Family. The Longbottoms, a pure bloodline known best for sheer, unadulterated tragedy. The parents, Frank and Alice, were respected auras who were heroes of the First War, but failed spectacularly when they were tortured into permanent insanity by Bellatrix Lestrange and her cronies. Their son, Neville, is well Neville. He struggled to even stand a cauldron the right way up. His grandmother, Augusta Longbottom, is clearly the backbone of the family, a necessity given the boy's initial academic performance. He represents the failure of inheritance, a pure blood who lacked the flair or competence of his impressive parents. While he eventually found some clumsy renown by destroying the Dark Lord's pet snake, an act of basic pest control, really his legacy remains tied to suffering. a heroic tragedy proving that, even in the purest lines, magical talent often skips a generation entirely. The Slughorn Family. The Slughorns, an ancient pure-blood family who understood that true power isn't about public declarations. It is about collecting connections. Horace Slughorn, the potions master, built his career on cultivating talented or influential students for his slug club. He expertly mentored my grandfather, Abraxas Malfoy, and later taught both Lily Evans, a muggle born confusingly, and critically Tom Riddle. This family embodies the practical application of elitism, knowing the right sort of people. Naturally, Slughorn attempted to recruit me, citing his old connection to my grandfather. As if I had time for his tedious little club when I had far more important matters to attend to. It simply proves that his judgment is based on fleeting celebrity rather than true, lasting power, a pathetic substitute for genuine influence. The Ollivander Family. We observe the Ollivanders, not a great political house, but the oldest family specializing in the true source of a wizard's power, the wand, manufactured since 382 BC. Garrick Ollivander is noted for his unnerving ability to remember every single wand he has ever sold. His importance is purely foundational. He crafted the sibling wands of both Harry Potter and the Dark Lord, linking them through a shared phoenix feather core, a reckless decision that has caused endless trouble. This family's historical impact is immense, though personally, I find them rather annoying, especially after Ollivander allowed my own Hawthorn and Unicorn hair wand to be seized by Potter. The idea that a piece of wood can change its allegiance after merely being won is frankly barbaric, a flaw the wand makers refuse to acknowledge. A surprisingly crucial family of mere merchants, providing the tools of magic, but proving themselves utterly defenseless when the true powers come knocking. The Avery Family. The Avery line is an ancient one, maintaining its pure blood status religiously. Their history is uncomplicated. They were early adherents to the cause. Of course, one of them had to grovel for forgiveness in that graveyard when the Dark Lord returned and was punished for his weakness, proof that their loyalty had its limits. Still, they are useful. My father commanded Avery and McNair during the unfortunate excursion into the Department of Mysteries, a useful illustration of their subordinate status. They are a family of reliable, if unimpressive, servants, proving that even weak-willed followers have their uses, provided they are properly led. The Nott Family. The Nott family is another example of an ancient pure blood. Theodore Nott's father was one of the Dark Lord's earliest followers, though like Avery, he had to grovel for forgiveness in that graveyard for failing to search for him. Young Theodore, a quiet Slytherin in our year, clearly learned the lesson. Keep your head down when your family has already been shamed. They are a reminder that a pure name alone is not enough without unwavering strength. A family is reduced to being a subordinate, useful only when commanded. They are not a model, merely a serviceable, if unimpressive, part of the machine. The Parkinson Family. The Parkinsons are members of the Sacred 28. The most relevant member, of course, is Pansy Parkinson. Pansy was always part of my immediate circle, a loyal fixture. She proved useful, possessing a certain vindictiveness that made her perfect for the inquisitorial squad. Pansy's greatest claim to infamy, however, was her decisive action during the final chaos at Hogwarts. She spoke up, attempting to seize Potter and hand him over to the Dark Lord. She possessed the clarity to understand what needed to be done, a quality lacking in many others who claimed loyalty. A lineage defined by useful ambition, her only moments of true clarity were when she was focused on me, but she was absolutely ruthless when facing the enemy. The Rosier Family. The Rosier Family is another pure bloodline, with some ancient members foolishly backing Grindelwald. The more relevant one, Evan Rosier, was one of the Dark Lord's earliest Death Eaters. He was notoriously sadistic before he was eventually hunted down and killed by Auras. This family proves that raw fanaticism is no substitute for cunning. Rosier chose to fight and die rather than adapt and survive, proving that loyalty is utterly useless if it ends with you on the wrong end of a curse. A pointless display of violence that ended exactly as one would expect. The Selwyn family. The Selwyns are noted as a high-status pure-blood family. Their prominence is confirmed by two figures. First, the unfortunate Dolores Umbridge claimed descent from them, an embarrassing association for any respectable line. Second, the family provided at least one Death Eater who was present during the kidnapping of Luna Lovegood and the subsequent attack on Potter at her father's house. They are another example of a proper family integrating seamlessly into the Dark Lord's machinations. A respectable name, somewhat tarnished by the pathetic aspirations of ministry toads and the necessity of getting their hands dirty with work better suited for snatchers. The Travers Family. The Travers pedigree has its moments. The family supplied a confirmed Death Eater who notoriously murdered the McKinnons, a respectable contribution. They have always maintained a presence at the ministry, attempting to secure influence. However, their reputation is permanently stained by one of their own being, so weak-willed that he was put under the imperious curse by the mudblood, Granger. To be controlled so easily is not a sign of complex maneuvering. It is a mark of pathetic incompetence. They are a family that aimed for influence, but proved they lacked the strength to wield it when it mattered. The Yaxley Family. Yaxley is an exemplar of the current regime's inner circle. He was present at the meetings at Malfoy Manor and possessed the ambition to boast about his great effort in successfully placing the imperious curse upon pious thickness. A key ministry official, Yaxley was utterly determined to receive approval from the Dark Lord, believing his infiltration of the ministry's Department of Magical Transportation gave our side a significant advantage. He represents the necessary, albeit clumsy, administrative power required to cement the Dark Lord's rule. Though confident in his sources, Yaxley was easily manipulated by false information about Potter, revealing a lack of foresight when dealing with genuine spies like Snape. Dedicated and ambitious, demonstrating that overwhelming determination is sometimes sufficient to compensate for a regrettable lack of native cunning. The Abbott Family. The Abbotts were once a genuine pure bloodline, members of the Sacred 28. Yet, like so many lines lacking true resolve, their purity was eventually diluted. The mother of Hannah Abbott, a Hufflepuff contemporary of ours, was killed by Death Eaters, indicating the family was foolish enough to oppose the proper order of things. Hannah herself was a half-blood who later married Neville Longbottom, thus ensuring the family's permanent relegation to the sentimental fringes of wizarding history. It is a cautionary tale of what happens when one fails to maintain strict adherence to breeding, a lineage that fell from pure-blood grace and cemented its insignificance by mingling its contaminated name with a clumsy accidental hero like Longbottom. The Bulstrode Family. The Bulstrodes are another example of a lineage that only mostly maintained its status, producing a half-blood contemporary in Millicent Bulstrode. Millicent, a Slytherin, was noted for her size and thuggish demeanor, often serving as a useful brute force when required, such as wrestling Granger in the dueling club. Her primary contribution to history, however, was providing a sample of her hair, which Granger mistakenly used in a polyjuice potion, a pathetic claim to fame. The family is proof that Slytherin can tolerate a surprising degree of incompetence, provided the allegiance is clear, a name clinging to the Sacred 28 by a thread, notable primarily for producing physically large Slytherins, whose main contribution was supplying hair for the wrong polyjuice potion. The Fawley Family. Fawley is a pure blood family, usually sorted into Hufflepuff, whose most notable member was Hector Fawley, Minister for Magic in the 1920s and 30s. His tenure, brief as it was, ended because he failed to grasp the magnitude of the rising threat presented by Gellert Grindelwald. He was voted in largely because he was the opposite of the previous minister, which proves that electing based on reaction rather than inherent power is always a blunder. A pure bloodline of Hufflepuffs, whose brief flirtation with the ministry ended abruptly because they couldn't recognize a true threat to the magical world when it was standing right in front of them. The Greengrass Family. The Greengrasses are another of the Sacred 28, a respectable pure bloodline. My contemporary Daphne Greengrass is in Slytherin and is naturally one of the right sort. The family is old and wealthy, and they understand the importance of maintaining their purity without making an unnecessary spectacle of themselves. They are a perfectly acceptable example of a proper wizarding family that knows its place and upholds the correct values. A quiet, but undeniably solid, pure-blood pedigree. The Prewett family. The Prewetts were pure-blood, but actively rejected the ideologies of blood purity. Molly Weasley N.A. Prewett is the most recognizable member, being Molly Weasley. Her brothers, Gideon and Fabian Prewett, demonstrated a futile brand of reckless bravery, dying as heroes during the First Wizarding War against 5 Death Eaters. This family perfectly embodies the fatal flaw of valuing abstract concepts like fighting like heroes over the pragmatism required for survival and success. A pure-blood family who foolishly traded their noble lineage for blood traitor status, wasting their lives in a futile display of bravery against 5 Death Eaters. The Shacklebolt Family. The Shacklebolts are a pure-blood family that wastes its inherent status. Kingsley Shacklebolt is the prime example, a powerful aura who uses his considerable influence within the ministry not to uphold our traditions, but to protect the Muggle Prime Minister and serve as Dumbledore's man on the inside. He is the most irritating kind of blood traitor, one who holds a position of authority and respect, yet uses it to undermine the very principles our world was built on. A pure blood who acts as a bodyguard for Muggles is a profound embarrassment to his name and an insult to our entire society. The Macmillan Family. The Macmillans are a pure-blood family who for generations avoided any strong political stance. Ernie Macmillan, a Hufflepuff contemporary of ours, proved merely to be a pompous, self-important student who spent most of his school years focused on his own grades. Rather inconveniently, he also suspected Potter of being Slytherin's heir for a time, displaying a profound lack of judgment. His primary distinction is his unwavering, albeit overbearing, support for Dumbledore, a pure-blood Hufflepuff line famous for producing a pompous student obsessed with his own exam scores, whose misguided loyalty was ultimately thrown behind Dumbledore. The Flint Family. The Flints were one of the Sacred 28. Their contribution is primarily characterized by brute force and Quidditch. Marcus Flint, the Slytherin captain who played against Potter, possessed a trollish cunning and a distinct physical size. Josephina Flint was also a minister for magic in the early 1800s. The family understood the value of power, as my father, Lucius, demonstrated when he purchased the entire Slytherin team, New Nimbus 2001s, securing Marcus's position and showing how true influence operates. A powerful, if aesthetically challenged, Slytherin lineage whose modern members clearly understand the benefits of aligning themselves with their betters. The Crouch Family. The Crouches' pure blood, obsessed with authority. Bartemius Crouch Sr. rose to be head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. His most notorious act was sentencing his own son, Barty Crouch Jr., to Azkaban for being a Death Eater. Barty Jr. escaped, spent a year masquerading as Moody, orchestrated Potter's entry into the Triwizard Tournament, and murdered his own father. The line was brutally extinguished when Junior received the Dementor's kiss, a rather severe ending, even for a family devoted to following the letter of the law. A family line of severe authority that was utterly destroyed when the father's political fanaticism collided with the son's ideological extremism, leaving them both dead and utterly soulless. The Rowle Family. The Rowles are another of the Sacred 28. While an ancestor, Damocles Rowle, briefly served as minister on a tough on Muggles platform before being forced out for his weakness, the family's modern contribution is more direct. Thorfinn Rowle, a large and brutish wizard, is a known Death Eater. He is a clear example of the kind of raw power the Dark Lord finds useful. All aggression and very little finesse. They are a family that talks of purity, but whose modern legacy is defined by simple violence rather than the more refined art of political influence. They are useful tools, but tools nonetheless. The Shafiq Family. The Shafiqs are a prominent name, recognized as one of the Sacred 28. Unlike some families who rest on their history, The Shafiqs have proven their continued relevance in the modern age. They supplied a Death Eater who was an active participant in the war, a wizard who understood his duty and answered the call when it mattered. While not leaders, they are a clear example of a pure bloodline that has maintained its proper allegiance. Their pedigree is not merely a record of past purity, but a guarantee of present loyalty to the Dark Lord's cause. And so, you see the lesson clearly. The price of high birth is the constant burden of maintaining superiority. When houses like the Crouches fail, the father obsessed with the letter of the law over the sanctity of his own line, the son a reckless fanatic. They prove only their own weakness. They are a cautionary tale not against our ideology, but of what happens when lesser families attempt to wield it without the necessary cunning. Bloodlines may fade, but true breeding, the kind that values survival and power above all, never does. Now that you understand that bloodlines, even the Potters, must be ranked by pedigree, ensure you watch my previous segment, A Malfoy's Guide to Magical Artifacts.